The first time I met Prabhupada, I was in Vancouver, British Columbia, and I told my temple president, Bahudak, I want to go meet Prabhupada. And he said, if you want to please Prabhupada, you stay here and do your service. I said, Jai Prabhu. So the minute he left the temple, I packed a tiny little bag, put on a red coat, and ran out of the back door of the temple. So I wanted to meet Prabhupada, and he's coming into Los Angeles the next day. On those days, it's hippies time, so it was very difficult to get across the border if you didn't have money. So when I got to the border, there were two custom officers, and because I was wearing a dhoti and shaved head, and they said, it looks like we have a Mormon here. And they start laughing. And they're laughing, and they say, go ahead. So they led me through. That was like, to me, I said, this is a miracle. This doesn't happen. So that night, I hitchhiked to the border of Oregon. And from the border of Oregon to Los Angeles I think it's 1,100 miles. It's a good 20-hour drive, 25-hour drive. So I got up as early as the sun came up. I got up. First car that comes by is a brand new Corvette. And it stopped. And he said, where are you going? And I said, I'm going to LA. And he says, today is your lucky day. So then I noticed on his dashboard, he had all these gadgets to track the speed traps. So he was cruising at least 100 to 120 miles an hour. Yes, and he was actually a very young, handsome, very friendly. And so before I knew, we were in LA. Like, Prabhupada's coming 4:30 to LA. And he just happened to be going 2 blocks from the temple. So he dropped me off, and I ran. I knew what the temple was. I had a little map. I ran to the temple. I asked where the showers are, and I ran upstairs, shower, put on new clothes, tilak. I ran down the stairs, because the bodies were chanting that we're waiting for Prabhupada already. And as soon as I came, Prabhupada's car is pulling on the back alley. This is in New Dwarka. Then all of a sudden, petals start falling from the sky. So it's like one of those real good movies where the king is coming in and there's music and trumpets. And so then the car stopped, and for some reason I thought Prabhupada would be tall because of the sound of his voice. So when he got out of the car, I noticed that he was a little short, but then when he got out, he saw the devotees and he saw the flowers, and he smiled, a big, big smile. And if you ever saw Prabhupada smile, you will understand what I'm saying. When he smiled, it's like I lost track of time, I lost track of place, and it seemed like an eternity, but at the same time, it seemed like a short time. But I felt like the first time you fall in love with a girl, if you multiply that 1,000,000 times, that's what I just felt like something overcome me. So Prabhupada got out of the car very gracefully, walked 3 or 4 steps, and went into the door. And that's the first time I met him. So to me, that was a miracle, that Prabhupada made all these arrangements so I could be there on time. So he knew everybody's heart. He knew I wanted to be there when he came. So I had that opportunity. In Los Angeles, 1973, I got a second initiation. So they asked us to bring Guru Dakshin for Prabhupada. So I went out and I collected, I think like $5, but I thought, I gotta do something special because this is the greatest guru on the planet. I'm not gonna give him $5. I felt like so I went into the kitchen in LA asking for the biggest wok that they had, and I covered it with a tin foil, and I went to Balian's Market across the street and I bought about $50 worth of tropical fruit. It filled the wok, I could barely carry it. So if you've been to the LA temple, there's a bench outside where the devotees were waiting for second initiation. So there I am with my wok and full of fruit, and the first devotee went in and he came out crying, like in less than a minute. And we were like, wow, what happened? And he said, Prabhupada saw my bead bag and it wasn't clean. And he said, if you want to be a Brahmana, you first have to learn how to be clean. So go wash your bead bag and come back. So we all look at our bead bags and said, clean enough? So I wasn't sure, so I took the beads out of the bead bag and I put them around my neck. And I put the bead bag on my pocket. So I walk into the room with this wok, huge, full of fruit. And Prabhupada had his little desk on the floor as usual. And I put it in front of him. I said, no, he said, put it over there. He had a small altar. And then he said, do you chant 16 rounds? And I kind of a little proudly said, Srila Prabhupada, I chant 32 rounds. And I thought he would say, oh, that's great, or that's wonderful. But he didn't say anything. So then I sat in front of the desk, and he said, no, come sit here, right next to him. And then he said, he showed me how to count, and I couldn't do it. And he went like this, he says, not to worry, you will learn this. Then he said, I say, you say, and then he goes, Om Bur. And then somebody knocked on the door, and one of Prabhupada's secretaries, I think, and he said, Prabhupada, these are time-sensitive documents that you have to look at for the bank, and we have to get them there, like right now. So he looks at me like this, smiling, and says, you're going to have to wait. So I'm sitting next to Prabhupada, and I didn't know what to do. So I thought, chant Hare Krishna. So I was chanting very softly. And it must have been about 15 minutes. Yes, this is the only time that I had close association with Prabhupada. So he looked at the papers and signed them, and then somebody came and picked the papers, and then he gave me the Gayatri, and then he got the Brahma thread. This Brahma threads from India, they come folded up in a bundle. So he grabbed the thread and he ran it through his knees to straighten it out. And then he put the thread on me. And then he said, this does not make you a Brahmana. This gives you the opportunity to become a Brahmana. So this is very important. Just because you wear a thread doesn't mean you're a Brahmana. But if you act like a Brahmana, even if you don't have a thread, then you could be a Brahmana. But with a thread, and if you act properly, then you're really a Brahmana. So somehow or other I decided in my mind, if I could find Srila Prabhupada at 8 different temples, this will be the perfection of my life. And of course, we didn't know how long Prabhupada was going to be on the planet. So some people said, no, you should stay and do your service. But I said, I got to do this. I have to do it. So Prabhupada happened to be in LA at the time, and he was going to Dallas, Atlanta, Miami, and New York. So for the bodies, we got a drive-away car, and we follow Prabhupada. So first temple, we missed Dallas because we wouldn't make it in time for Atlanta. So we decided Atlanta would be a better place to go. So we went to Atlanta, and Radha Damodar bus, there were 3 Radha Damodar bus with over 100 devotees, brahmacharis, and they had brand new dhoti, shaved head, and each one had a rose. So the first devotee went and offered the rose to Prabhupada and touched his feet. Now, nobody touched Prabhupada. You couldn't just walk up and touch Prabhupada's feet. This was like not kosher, something you don't do. So the first devotee went and offered the rose, touched Prabhupada's feet. So the next one did it, and so everybody that was there got to touch Prabhupada's feet. So that was great, because I before that I had that opportunity too in Los Angeles. I asked somebody, how could I touch Prabhupada's feet? I know that we're not supposed to. He said, when Prabhupada comes in the morning, he comes out of the door, comes and offers obeisance to the first set of deities. He says, you get behind Srila Prabhupada. Even if you have to push and shove, you do it. And when he's offering dandavats, you almost don't touch your head, but kind of, so you don't disturb him. So we don't want to disturb Prabhupada. So I went and I did it, and I did it. I put my head on Prabhupada's feet when he's offering dandavat. That's like stealing mercy from the Guru, but Guru Kripa is very important. We have to be greedy for the mercy of the spiritual master. So if by hook and crook, then you do it, but that's the only way to do it. So on this tour in Atlanta, back to Atlanta, Prabhupada taught us the song Udilo Aruna. First he said word by word, then line by line, and says, okay, now we will sing it. Says, give me a mridanga. I never seen Srila Prabhupada play the mridanga. So I thought, wow, I'm going to watch him to see play mridanga. So they brought him a drum, Atlanta, winter time. These drums made out of leather, they go flat. So he played on the drum one time, says, useless. Bring another drum. Everybody running like crazy, and they bring another drum. Same thing, he hits it one time. And then he just like hit it 3 times, and the drum tuned up perfectly. To me, this was a miracle. Because I play drum a little bit, and usually winter time, that kind of drum, you have to put over a fire or something to make it. So Prabhupada said, very well. So he taught us the song. Then from there, we went to Gainesville. In Gainesville, the temple was in Coconut Grove, and Abhiram was the temple president. And there's a big banyan tree in the back, but there was no grass, it was only dirt. So he figured, better than sit on the dirt, we'll get some dry leaves. So where you get dry leaves to cover a huge area? So somebody said, let's go to the dump. People take leaves to the dump. So here we are, I don't know, 1 or 2 trucks, 10 devotees. We made 2 or 3 trips. We had the whole yard, took like 6 hours. Prabhupada comes into the temple. He goes in the backyard. He swung his cane like this over the leaves. He says, why don't they pick these leaves up? This would only create mosquitoes. And then he turned around and went back. So there we are. We're like, everybody like crazy picking up the leaves because he's about to give lecture soon. So there I am waiting to find Prabhupada. In Miami it was easy because there weren't that many devotees. And I was I don't know, this far from Prabhupada, and I'm fanning him. And I could see the mosquitoes. They'll come about this close to him, and they turn away. And I was like, wow. They were biting me, they were biting everybody else. And that's one of the times that he said, these mosquitoes here, they have respect, but in India, no respect. So then a person from the audience, some Rastafarian-looking guy, says, I hear Lord Shiva smokes ganja. And Srila Prabhupada smiled, and he said, yes, he does. He says, but also he drank an ocean of poison. So if you could drink this ocean of poison, then okay, then you could smoke. So everybody was amazed. Also, another person asked another question. He had a turban, he was a follower of Guru Nanak. And usually when somebody will name any guru, Prabhupada will say, I don't know who that is, or he'll just didn't answer. But in this case, he said, you're so fortunate to have a guru like Guru Nanak. And of course, we know that the Sikhs defended the Vaishnavas many, many times. So that I learned some history, and I learned that the mosquitoes in Miami had respect. So when I decided that I had to fan Prabhupada at 8 places, I inquired from people, how do you get to fan Prabhupada? And I heard different versions, but the one version that I used, this devotee told me, you stand next to the person fanning Srila Prabhupada, and if he stops for 1 second, you don't ask. You grab the camera and you start fanning. So I was like an eagle, just looking at this devotee. And a fly landed on his nose. So he stopped, and when he's trying to scare the fly, I grabbed the camera, and he was stunned. You know, he didn't know what to say or do. But I already had the camera, and Prabhupada is right there, so he's not gonna, say like, oh, whatever. So I started fanning Prabhupada. So in those days, even to get close to Prabhupada's Vyasa-san, it was difficult because you had all the GBCs, temple presidents, big devotees, and the little devotees couldn't get close enough to Prabhupada. So even to get enough close to fan him, it was even harder. But I was determined that if I could do this, it will be the perfection of my life. And then after Prabhupada disappeared, then I came to the realization that I performed this great, tiny little service, insignificant. But it was a pure devotee, and I had a determination to do it. And I felt that this is what human life is about. We have to serve Guru by any way we can, even if it's a small way or a big way. If you go to a dentist appointment, leave a little pamphlet on the bench. When people are at the checkout on the store, they say, how you doing today? You say, oh, I'm doing terrible, I cannot think of Krishna today. So we always have to think how to please Guru in any way we can, big or small. It's the attitude. I will start by saying that I was in Los Angeles, and there's these little fences where the bodies sit down. And Prabhupada was coming out walking. And he went to Prabhupada and said, Srila Prabhupada, I must have done so many austerities in previous life to become your devotee, to meet you. And Prabhupada says, you didn't do anything. It's all my mercy. So Prabhupada had so much mercy that you didn't have to talk to him. You didn't have to, simply by being in his presence. In Los Angeles Temple, there's a garden, and on the second floor, there is a prasadam room. And we used to go and look at Prabhupada when he's in the garden, because you could never get tired of seeing Prabhupada. Everything he did, it was like those people that do Tai Chi. His movements were delicious. Everything he did, it was like perfect. So we love just to watch him. And sometimes he would look up, and there would be like 5, 6, 10 faces. So he told Karandar, he says, I don't like this. He says, I want to sit here and I don't want people up there looking. So they put paper on the windows, but we were allowed to make tiny little holes on these papers. And of course, we would be looking through these little holes just to see Srila Prabhupada. And if you ever saw Prabhupada, every time he gave class, and everybody will tell you this, he will look straight into every one person in that room. He will look right into your eyes, and for that second, you will feel it. You will feel that mercy. You just feel, you can see that he's looking right through you. There's nothing you can hide. So, to me, he's like the most wonderful, the most merciful. And mercy is very, very important. And Srila Prabhupada had the most mercy. He didn't distinguish whether you were white, black, old, young, poor, professional. Didn't matter. You're a spirit soul, and he's here to take you back home. If you just give him the chance. If you just, like he said, I wasn't very bright or very smart, but I'd listen. And my Guru Maharaj noticed that, and he said, I noticed that everybody gets up and moves, starts scratching, but you listen very good. So that's one thing very important, to listen. Because Shravan and Kirtan, first, before we could talk about Krishna, we have to listen about Krishna.
Je anilo premadana koruna prachu